Shalom, guys. What's up? It's your girl Jetty, Empress Jetty, the Rabble Rouser. Thank you for tuning in. What is my hair doing? I'm gonna see. I've not been live on YouTube in a really long time, so I am going to see if I can share this. So just give me a moment while I see. There we go. There we go. Sharing links. If you guys would just give me a second. Y'all be glorified, magnified, and praised. How's everybody doing? Strange little thing, just some little creature. All right, I'm just gonna give me 5 minutes, guys, and go ahead and share these. Um, oh shoot, no, we don't have a letter V here. Well, okay. So we're going to be talking about boys and men, guys, and I get into a lot of hot water for this. And you know what? I can't even pretend I like care on the level that I know a lot of you think that I should care about how you feel about me when I make these upsetting posts. But I don't care about that because you guys have to grow up, okay? So may y'all speak truth through me today. If you haven't already, check out the playlist here on YouTube entitled The Culture. Those are original songs by me. If you'd like to work with me, anything like that, hit me up, okay? So now we're 2 minutes in. Let's get to it. Man, oh man, I wish I had some of my heavy hitters in here on this live to help flesh this out. But I'm just going to go for it. And this is entitled Boys and Men, but in truth, I'm going to deal with this across the genders. I'm going to deal with boys and men, and I'm going to deal with girls and women, okay? Because at the end of the day, lack of maturity and lack of wisdom is like not a gender specific issue, right? So I was watching, I had to unfollow someone today on YouTube, this young man who typically he gives pretty good content, right? He shares pretty good content. I will say it tends to be a little on the superficial side, a little young, he just feels really young. So you know the difference between a young, smart person and like wisdom, right? So this guy is young and smart, but sometimes the wisdom is lacking, right? So it's like intellectual concepts that don't hold up in like real life. You know what I mean? And so I had to unfollow him today because typically I'm like, I don't think I've ever made it through a full broadcast of his. But I do share because I know that where he's at is really helpful to where a lot of people are at. I know a lot of the stuff I talk about and deal with goes above a lot of people's heads. And so there's a need not just for like, I guess you would say master's level, I guess examination like I do. There's also need for different levels, right? Because people have different level of understanding, revelation, investment, time, all of that. So I typically share this brother stuff, and it usually is received pretty well. Excuse me, it's a little tickle. But today he made a post that I guess was a response post to something that a young lady that I typically follow, again, very smart young lady, has some wisdom in her, but very immature. And so you see a lot of the similar with the two of them, where they have this little smart content. It's kind of spiritual. It's kind of thought out. It can definitely help a person, in a certain place to make a level up. But I typically don't make it through hurtful broadcasts either. It's just I try to support, but in all honesty, I usually get off of there because if I don't, I'm going to end up saying something that I know will be interpreted and felt as like coming against her ministry, which, I don't want to be discouraging to people who are leveling people up. And so I usually just listen for a few minutes and then share. Okay, so the same with this young lady. So apparently she made a video that said that that basically men who were against being stepfathers were showing emotional immaturity. And then the guy's response video was basically, we're not emotionally immature just because we don't want them used up women and them other people's kids. And we have standards and we want pure virgins for our godly, righteous selves. And that's not bad, and you can't make us feel bad. First of all, it's always the people with nothing to offer talking about what they ain't gonna give, okay? Now, I don't know the boy, all right? I don't know his life or nothing like that. But here's what I do know. No man or woman of quality creates a narrative that narrows the scope of their giving as a life rule. No person walking in truth, love, wisdom, justice, no person walking under Yahweh's guidance is going to create a life rule that prevents them from serving the most vulnerable in any capacity. So just the language that this young man was using to describe women who previously have children shows that he is inexperienced in life, lacks wisdom and experience, right? He's saying things like, just because y'all was a hoe and got a bunch of kids, we don't want y'all hoe babies. Like, that's just crazy, right? First of all, who do you hang with, okay? Like, there are so many complicated reasons and situations for single parenthood that it is just downright disturbing that there are people who think that they're grown that are still spinning the narrative that Black women are single mothers because we're just random whores and that we just sleep with anybody, and then that's how we end up with children. And then the other notion that is very childish is the idea that those children are a curse and not a blessing. You see, the scriptures talk often about what blessings are and what blessings are not, and the fate and the roles and the lives of blessed people. And blessed people, their blessings are things like the legacy that they leave behind, the people whose lives they've touched in a positive way, right? Excuse me. It is a sign of the curse that Black men do not love children. Just in general, do not love children. The hearts of the fathers are not turned toward children. Black men do not have love for children. They don't have fatherly love toward children. That is a sign of the curse. So when you talk to a man and he refers to children, his or anybody else's, as if they are a burden or a curse or they somehow show that having a lot of children is some sort of display of lack in some way, right? These are all directly contrary to scripture, right? That is the marking of a foolish man, right? Scriptural men, wise scriptural men, aka grown-ups, okay? Because I'm tired of calling people grown that have not entered into any kind of spiritual understanding and revelation. From now on, grown means you can have a real conversation about what's really going on, and that you can present a doctrinally, spiritually sound argument for why you believe what you believe. All this is the way I feel, and that's just that. See, that's childishness. And not even children, because nowadays the children are wiser than that. So when you have a man who, first of all, perceives that children, his or anyone else's, are anything other than a blessing, he isn't a man in error. He's not the catch that you think he is, girl. He is far from Yah. Far from Yah. Anytime you hear a man who speaks of the vulnerable, right? Orphans, widows, homeless people, people in prison, sick people, right? When you hear a man talk about those populations and he's in a place where he has his nose in the air and he's ew, gross, right? They're ew, gross to him, right? And he is such a good catch because he would never be them, okay? And he would never be associated with the likes. He's better than them. He is not the catch that you think he is just because he ain't got no kids and he got some good job and he drives that car and he's a homeowner and all that. He's not a catch. Listen, that is a liability. That man is a liability to the entire community. He's an absolute liability to the entire community. He is as much a liability to the community, and maybe I won't get into the women's side. Maybe I'll do that as a separate post. I'll just stick with this because we're already 12 minutes in, right? He is as much a liability in the community as a woman who feels like all she has to give to a marriage or a relationship is sex, and that just by her offering sex, all of her needs should be met, and that some man is supposed to come along now and set her up in whatever life she feels would be most comfortable for her, just because she has a vagina and may or may not share it with him. Like, it's just crazy that you people think that you're grown-ups and you have these kinds of ideas. All right, so let me do it this way. You single women out there who are raising children, and you single men out there who are raising children, do not even consider being with someone who uses language about vulnerable populations, the homeless, the poor, the sick, people that are in prison, children without fathers, women without husbands. These are vulnerable populations. If you are raising children, never even consider marrying someone who speaks of those populations in a negative light. If they ever say things about those populations, I'm not going to say ever, but if they consistently say things about those populations that are judgmental of them, are critical, very critical of them, or if they are always in a position of they're not getting my stuff, I worked hard for my stuff, maybe they need to work hard for my, if they want stuff, they need to work hard for it too, right? If they have that kind of an attitude towards vulnerable populations, that is going to do so much damage to your child's sense of self-worth, value. Trust me, it is not worth whatever benefits you think they bring to the table. It's not. The damage that kind of thinking does to children, right? And children know better than that. Children are repulsed by that. Children know better. Your kid is going to know that that person is not what's up. They're going to get a weird little I don't like it feeling from that person, and you're going to be you trying to like make them smile and like be nice to this oppressor because they make, you know, six figures or whatever, or they're this or they're that, and you want the status of being associated with whatever benefits you think they have. And so you keep shutting your child up, and you keep shutting up the people that are saying to you, that's troublesome. Did you hear the way he mocked that homeless lady? Or did you hear the judgment that he had for that lady just because she had all them kids? He don't know if they're her kids. Like, you know, you see a man in the store, and like there's a lady in the store with a bunch of kids, and they coming through to check out, and he starts talking smack about people needing to learn to keep their legs closed and this and that. Like, bro, you don't know, that could be her daycare class. That could be, you don't know who them kids are. But just the fact that they look out at the world, at these populations that they consider to be beneath them, okay? They look out at the world and they see these populations and they are beneath them. And then they vow that their resources are not for them, people down there. This is probably, I didn't listen to the sister's video. This is probably what she was talking about though, right? Because an emotionally mature man understands that he is a resource. And an emotionally mature man, excuse me, I'm gonna shut the door because my puppy's hollering. An emotionally mature man understands that he is a resource and that he is only as valuable as he is accessible to those who need him. And so an emotionally mature man would operate in that. A spiritually mature man, okay, which I am calling a grown man, a spiritually mature man understands that the only reason he has an overflow of provision is so that he can share with those who have less. That's the only, he's going to understand that that's the only reason he has that overflow. And so he is going to have a mission in his heart to seek out who he can share that abundance with. That's what he's going to do. Okay? So I didn't listen to the sister's video, but I'd be willing. Hi, I don't know who's watching. I got one person watching. Say hi to me in the comments so I can know who you are. Thank you for watching. We're 18 minutes in, so I was kind of going to wrap up soon. I was trying to keep it under 30 minutes. But like, spiritual maturity is not debatable. Spiritual maturity is not like, well, when I mature in the spirit, I'll become more humble. But when you mature in the spirit, you'll become more arrogant. When I mature in the spirit, I'll become more giving. But when you mature in the spirit, you'll become more selfish. Now, I don't mean to say that that there aren't dysfunctions to any of those extremes and that could not be true. But as a rule, spiritual maturity is going to draw you into being like your creator. And your creator does not have those kinds of hierarchies in terms of provision. The sun comes up for everybody just because it can. The rain pours down, it nourishes all the plants in the garden. It's not like, well, I'm going to nourish the weeds and not the flower, or I'm going to nourish the flower and not the grass, right? And so spiritual maturity would have you to be more and more able to give on a broader basis. That is what spiritual maturity is going to do. Why? Because spiritual maturity, you become a channel or a vessel. So you're not even giving from yourself. So you have an unlimited supply. You tap into the reality of the unlimited supply. And so because all you're doing really is distributing an unlimited supply, now you will seek out places to deposit that supply. And you're going to start in the places where there is the most need. Because that's what Yah does. Because that's the charge on the righteous. So don't be fooled by these men and women that would try to lift themselves up above vulnerable people. They are no better than those vulnerable people. That man who, listen, half these dudes running around and half these chicks running around that are so much better than everybody because they ain't got kids when they're heading into their 30s and their 40s and stuff. Let me tell you how half of them don't have kids because they have aborted babies, okay? And I don't care if you like it. I know it to be true. Over half of them have aborted babies, okay? So you're dealing with murderers. The other half, some are denying babies. So you're dealing with liars. Like, what? These people are lost and confused. And they're always lifting themselves up above somebody. Y'all got to listen. You're going to have to disassociate from these people that are so much better than everybody. You're going to have to disassociate with these. I know that you have been striving forever just to get close to them so that you can perceive yourself on their level by association with the people that are better than everybody. But don't stoop to their level. Don't fall into that pit that they are in. Because in truth, no one that feels good about who they are, no one that values their own soul, life, purpose, and skin, no one that truly does value themselves goes around bashing vulnerable people. They just don't do it. And making mantras and extensive videos on why they're better than people that have less than them or have more children or don't have a degree or don't vote or aren't vaccinated or whatever the next thing is. Okay? It's a bunch of nonsense. It's not spiritual. It's not godly. It's not holy. It's not righteous. You want to know what's excuse me. You want to know what's holy and righteous and spiritual? The fact that according to Yahweh, the Most High, men who don't do that are condemned. Men who do not take on the vulnerable children and women in the community are condemned. So much so, let me tell you this one. I don't know if this young brother is familiar with the story, but so much so that in the Bible, Judah, right? One of the sons of Israel, like one of the family members in the tribes had died, and Judah was the next kinsman that was supposed to marry this woman, right, and take on her kids. There were laws that specified what men had a responsibility to take on single women and their children. There were laws so that there were no such thing as single women with children, like not for long, not until they could find whoever it was that was in line that had a legal, spiritual, godly responsibility to marry that woman and bring her into his family and those children, regardless whether he already has a wife or not. He has a responsibility. The wife doesn't have the right, the first wife doesn't have a right to say you can't marry her. She doesn't even have that right. It's a law. It's a commandment from Yah that they should marry those women. So Judah didn't do it, right? Judah didn't marry the chick he's supposed to marry. And so guess what she did, y'all? Some of y'all know. This is what she did. She tricked him. She went by the edge of town. She dressed up like a whore. She rented a room. She dressed up like a whore. She know Judah. Judah come through. He pays her for a little evening, little rumble in the sheets, right? She keeps some items of his. He don't have no money to pay her. She keeps some items of his, right, as collateral. She does all of this disguise as a whore. Now she goes back to the camp, right? She goes back to the camp, and then after a while, it becomes apparent that she's pregnant. Nobody knows who or how, because her husband, this man of the tribe of Judah, her husband had passed, right? And so nobody knew what had happened, and so they were going to stone her, and because she wouldn't tell who she was pregnant by. Well, finally, she said, all right, I'll tell you. She pulls out Judah's items that she had held, and she said, this is my baby daddy right here. And so he's like, oh, snap. You mean to tell me that was you? She's like, yeah, that was me. So now, scripturally speaking, who was in the wrong in that scripture? This woman who had children by a previous marriage, who literally impersonated a literal whore to become pregnant by Judah, not married to him, in secret. So she tricked him, she deceived him, right? And she lay with him and became pregnant. He was in this position that these lames are in, right? I ain't trying to take on all that woman, all them kids, man, right? So when it becomes discovered that she's the whore that he has slept with, right? Who scripturally is wrong and who scripturally is right in the situation? Who is condemned? She's not condemned. She's redeemed. When she presents his items and says, this is my baby daddy right here, sir. Look familiar? These things look familiar to you? And Judah's like, oh, snap, that's my stuff. I'm so sorry that I put you in a position where you had to go to those lengths to get me to do the right thing. Now, some of you would try to preach that story and say that she was some kind of vixen, Jezebel, this, that, but that's not what the scripture said. We're going to stick with the scriptures, okay? That's not what the scripture says. Judah apologized. He was dead wrong. He apologized to her and did what he was supposed to do in the first place, which was marry her. So y'all got to rewrite what y'all think about life out here in these end time streets, because y'all is not going to have grace for you ungracious people. Yah is not going to extend grace and mercy to you people who don't never have grace and mercy for anybody else. You think all the grace and mercy is always for you to excuse what you want and how you feel and all of that. But then other people, there's always like a hard line of law that they need to like abide by. And the funny thing is, you guys don't even know the law, because if you did understand the law, you would understand that it is more of a sin that these men are not taking on stepchildren than that the stepchildren exist. It's more of a sin that these men are out here not taking care not only of their kids, but other people's kids. That's more of an offense to Yah than the woman that got 6, 7, 8, 9 kids. Look, I didn't write the scriptures. So, sorry, little boy that I used to have followed and used to share your stuff. I'm not sharing your stuff no more because I'm done with that too. You fall off, you fell off. I'm not going, I'm done with that. So I'm not going to keep supporting these oppressors. It's an oppressive mindset. And it's disgusting. And y'all are just yuck. Y'all are yuck, you people. Oh my God, I could never. I have standards. You ain't got no standards. You don't have no real standards. You don't have any standards that matter. You don't have any standards that's going to make it through the fire that's coming, that's already upon this earth. You want standards? You find out who you can help and get to it. Point freaking blank. Point blank. So we're at 30 minutes. Y'all be magnified, glorified, and praised. I hope this helped somebody, although I'm sure just upset some people. Whoever you are, my one audience member, thank you for watching. I appreciate you. I'm going to get off of here, man. I'm going to get off of here. I don't know if I'll do another follow-up. I got a few topics I'd like to address, but it's kind of awkward with like nobody watching because nobody talks back to me. And then I may as well just do a regular video if nobody's going to talk back. So anyway, that's all I got for you guys. Y'all better grow up. You people raising kids, don't you date them folks that think like that and feel like that. You keep them away from your kids. You hear me? Far, 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 far away. Your kids don't need Nikes and a big old house and a shiny car bad enough to be subject to that kind of wicked, oppressive mindset. You hear? All right.